Hello everyone, welcome to my Resident Evil Revelations, Infernal difficulty, no damage, no bonus items walkthrough. This is episode 11, which self-titles itself as Revelations, because we're playing Resident Evil Revelations. And this starts off very strong. This right here is one of the best bosses in this game, and it is a boss that dies very fast. I'm going to be able to kill this guy in less than a minute. That is how impressive this guy is. This is a survival horror boss fight. This is the kind of boss design that should have been apparent in this game. This is a boss fight that rewards saving your ammunition, it rewards being intelligent with your weapons, it actually has a realistic life pool to really make your weapons feel like they actually matter in this game. And this is exactly what it feels like when you use a damage 7 sniper rifle against a boss like this. Like, this is how this should have been. This is a significantly better boss design than any of the previous bosses we have seen. The boss fights previously were either average or pretty trash, or mediocre, but this one is not mediocre. This is fantastic. And look at that, I've just done the first phase in less than a minute. How great is that? And then now we have this vehicle sequence with the helicopter, and this works really well. This is the best vehicle sequence in the game. You're not getting screwed by any waves, you're not getting screwed by any weird sensitivity issues. Like, the Malakotas give you plenty of time to deal with them, and if you're not actively engaging with them, you will take a hit because they do have a range attack, and I think they also have a melee attack as well. I'm not too sure about that, but this is a really great encounter. This is definitely how you do a second-to-last boss fight at Resident Evil Revelations. And like I said, this should have been the standard for every single boss in this game. If every single boss could feel as great as this game could have been so much better, but sadly, that is not the case with a lot of the bosses. And at least it's a good thing that this trend of good bosses continues on into the final episode, because Jack Norman is a phenomenal final boss, and I managed to kill him in seconds. And I mean it when I say I killed him in seconds. That is how insane the sniper rifle is when you put damage 7 on it, and you're actually aiming for his weak spot, like his back, rather than his actual heart. That's insane. And I think one of the other reasons why my sniper rifle is so strong is because I put the attachment that allows you to deal more damage at close range. That is probably another reason why my sniper rifle is incredibly strong, because the situations where I've actually fired my sniper rifle have mainly been at close range rather than long range. And also, be careful not to overheat your gun right here. I overheated just then, but at least the Malakotas aren't being so aggressive right now. And this guy's taking forever to get out because Chris is slowing him down. And it's a good thing the AI is being very helpful right here, and this right here is a cinematic moment. The enemies are not going to attack you. You can't damage the enemies. It's just doing some very interesting camera work right here. This is definitely a great example of Resident Evil Design 101 right here, with introducing a unique change to the gameplay in a way that's actually great. Similar to Heisenberg's boss fight in Resident Evil Village. Heisenberg's boss fight in Resident Evil Village is Resident Evil Design 101 personified perfectly with an amazing boss fight in Resident Evil Village. Like, that is exactly how a Resident Evil boss should be. Heisenberg dies very fast. Heisenberg has some really cool designs with him, and he is a very fair boss, and the RPG designs of Resident Evil Village do not get in the way of good game design whatsoever in Heisenberg's boss fight. That boss fight is a great example of the developers not fearing their fan base. That is a great example of them actually having the confidence necessary to actually pull it together and actually do something very interesting with their game. That is definitely a sign of old Capcom present in Resident Evil Village, and this feels like an old Capcom boss fight right now, with how it's presented, and with how well designed it is. It's just a shame that people don't bother appreciating these kind of boss designs in survival horror games, because they don't want the game to ever go outside of its comfort zone at all. Like, people just want to make Resident Evil stay within its comfort zone, stay within the designs that they think supposedly works, like a Resident Evil 1 remake, and that is just not what Resident Evil is. Resident Evil is a game that is all about change. It is all about this developer actually doing things that no other developer has the courage necessary to do. And this is personified in this boss fight, this is personified in Resident Evil Village with Heisenberg's boss fight, and this is personified with all of Resident Evil 7, and with Resident Evil 4, and with Resident Evil 5, and also with certain parts of Resident Evil 6. Old Capcom did wonders for Resident Evil, and sadly, their legacy is being spat upon by new Capcom when they decided to enter the fray with Resident Evil 2 Remake, and then this continued on to Resident Evil 3 Remake with certain parts, and then with almost all of Resident Evil Village. I'm so disappointed with where Capcom is at this point. New Capcom is really driving this series into the ground. And if this whole trend of underwhelming design continues on into Resident Evil 9, or that supposed Resident Evil 4 remake, which I highly doubt is going to be the case because there's no reason for them to remake it, then the Resident Evil series will just become a shadow of its former self. And I'm going to just stop right there, And I need to talk about this part of episode 11 right now, because this is one of the worst parts of the game right here. This is honestly the worst past section ever in all the Resident Evil Revelations. Just the way the design is for this whole entire section, and just the way the ammunition is placed, just the way the enemies are handled, and just with the way they're placed, it's so bad. This is definitely a great example of how brain dead this version of Capcom was when designing this. We just did an incredible boss fight against the Malakotas and also against the Big Whale, and it was a truly phenomenal boss fight. That was a really great start to episode 11, but sadly, episode 11 ends flat. It ends really flat, just like with that same progression to Salazar from Resident Evil 4, where they built up Salazar so much, the game was really building towards this penultimate showdown with Salazar, and Salazar just turned out to be a piece of shit boss fight. And this right here, it feels exactly like that. There's just so much wrong with this entire section. Like, why is it that they're trying to force you to use the pistol so much, yet the combat system just isn't built for dealing with these kind of enemies with just the pistol? And this right here, we're doing this whole sequence where we have to escort Raymond, and we are limited in our capabilities, and you want to place us against these kind of hunters, and if you are aiming at the hunters, they have this tendency to jump all over the place, and you can't have that for the sequence. You have to hope that the hunters run towards you and then try to do the jump attack, because when you shoot them out of the air with one shot from your pistol, it will always stun them. But don't let that go to your head, because after this sequence, for some reason, it will take 2 shots to actually stun a hunter out of the air. You have to first hit the hunter, and then your second shot has to land when the hunter is in the air doing their jump attack or when they're running. It is bullshit. Why did they change that? If the hunters were as well designed as they were during that sequence where we were escorting Raymond, then I could totally understand why they would be forcing you to use the pistol so much. But it's just, with how much they're forcing you to use the pistol, you have to be very, very cautious when dealing with these hunters, because the hunters just aren't designed that well with the pistol in mind. They're designed more for the machine gun, and we will get machine gun ammo later on, but with the way the hunters are placed, after you try to get a lot of machine gun ammo, you're going to be using the machine gun a lot. And then there are also moments where they place the hunters in positions that are complete bullshit. Like, there's this whole moment where after you retrieve the tourniquet and you're making your way back to Raymond, before you even get through the door where Raymond is, they put hunters beyond the door. There are like 1 or 2 hunters placed beyond the door, and if you don't knife and then immediately try to dodge, you will always get hit. It is so bullshit. You have no chance of fighting back at times. I saved footage of this in my blooper section, but not for this particular video. It's going to be reserved for my Poor Designs of Resident Evil Revelation series, but it's just so trash that they would do that. And the thing is that if you don't specifically knife and you just go through the door and try to dodge, the dodge doesn't register at all. So the hunters can get a free hit on you because of this very crappy enemy placement that just shows how brain dead this version of Capcom was when designing this part of episode 11. And also right there, that is a scripted hunter spawn. You don't see this hunter until you go further into the room. Like right around here is where he spawns. But he's dead, and now we have to deal with these 2 hunters right here. And also, that's something I need to mention as well. Even after the hunters have done their jump attack animation, the game still thinks they're in their jump attack animation like a couple of seconds after they finish the animation. So that's how you can still trigger the stun animation sometimes after they complete their jump attack animation. You just gotta be very fast about it. And sometimes you will be able to instantly kill these hunters with the melee, other times you won't. I don't know why it varies sometimes with the way the HP is with these hunters. But there's the tourniquet, there's some machine gun ammo in here, you need it, because there's going to be a lot of hunters coming your way. And just the way they route corners, and just the way they bounce around, it can be very, very clunky, and the dodge just doesn't work very well against the hunters, and you can choose to run past them by going on the right-hand side, and just like hugging their left-hand side, but it doesn't work very well because of the fact that there are multiple hunters, and I'm going the wrong way right here. You need to go back down. Also, when you're on staircases, hunters have to get in very close to you in order to attack, and this ensures that the dodge won't screw you over. But be careful when that guy there chooses to use his left hand to attack, because sometimes after you dodge, he'll immediately try to attack, so you've got to get through the door quickly, or just dodge him. And then this right here, the hunters are going to spawn in very fast, so I'm going to try to hit this guy once, and then shoot him out of the air, or just shoot him while he's running, but it fails, and that right there was very lucky. I'm lucky that hunter got in the way of that other hunter's attack. Sadly, I wasn't able to get the charge attack out because these hunters attack you very fast. And I still don't like the charge attack on this game. I still hate how it's a binary variable. It's not a continuous variable. Like, why can't it just be from 0% to 100% full charge? if you're in the middle of the charge attack animation, you're at like 50%, it should apply a 50% damage modifier. And similarly, if you're at like 60%, 70%, or 80% of the charge animation, it should apply those kind of damage buffs. But it doesn't. It's either 0 or 100%. That's what I mean when I say it's a binary variable. It's so stupid. And the melee just can be very unreliable at times because of this. And that right there, I messed up my counter against the guy's jump attack. And you want to save up on a lot of ammo here. This is where the machine gun is needed because putting 2 hunters this close to you, it's too dangerous trying to go for it with just a pistol. And this right here, this is where the bullshit begins. Before I go into that room where the hunters are going to camp, I'm going to come over here, I'm going to get some pistol ammo and a grenade. And this is where the bullshit begins right here. So you'll see what I mean when I say placing these hunters right in front of the door is just bullshit. That right there is just completely fucking retarded. Like, look, there's a hunter right in front of the door, and if I don't knife and just initiate my dodge, I will never get that dodge. Why would they do that? That is brain-dead design right there. That is like going through that door in Leech Hunter in Resident Evil 0, and you just get immediately attacked by an enemy. You have no chance of attacking, you couldn't move, you couldn't dodge, you didn't have the reflexes to know that was gonna happen. Like, how is that fair? Like, how is that good? It's so stupid. And you don't really deal with that so much in Leech Hunter because the only time you'll ever be dealing with that is if you're trying to kill all the enemies in Leech Hunter. But that's exactly what that feels like. That's like going through a loading door in the older Resident Evil games and then getting immediately attacked. It's like that. And it's that level of bullshit with some of the sections in Resident Evil Revelations that makes me appreciate Resident Evil Village a lot more than this game. Like, this game does have a fun combat system, but its section designs leave something to be desired with certain parts. Whereas in Resident Evil Village, that game already has some really annoying sections, and there are just moments where you're not really doing much. But at least the sections overall, they don't feel as annoying as Resident Evil Revelation sections, and while there are some bad sections like with Bella's boss fight, for instance, or with Moreau, that's only a couple of sections, whereas this game, it has a lot more of that going for it, and that is why I'll say that Resident Evil Village is better than this game, for sure. Even though this game does have a really cool combat system at times, despite the fact that this game does have some annoying issues with its combat systems, like whatever we discussed with the melee, and with other enemy types, and with the dodge system. So those kind of problems definitely bring it down a lot more than with Resident Evil Village. But also, I forgot to mention that when you do go through the door, and you deal with that first hunter, before you deal with the hunter that is attacking Raymond, you'll want to stun the guy that comes beyond that barricade, and then you need to turn around and then deal with the hunter that is dealing with Raymond, and then deal with the rest of them. It's very simple. Now we have this part, and there's going to be some hunters coming up once we get Raymond near this door. Just like in episode 3, I'm going to repeat the exact same strategy, where I stand on this set of stairs right over here, and I deal with the hunters. But there is some grace to this section, which I do like. If you can pull this off correctly, you can do this entire section with such grace and with such elegance that it really feels Resident Evil in its designs. So the first thing you'll want to do is when you hear the hunters coming, you need to aim for this doorway over here and get rid of these 2 hunters. Then you need to stun this guy very quickly. I failed just then. If you can stun him and do a melee attack, you can get rid of both hunters with 1 melee attack. Sometimes it doesn't work though. But this right here, this is where some grace is going to occur, so I'm just going to stun that guy. That guy's going to run away, but then he's going to come back, and I kill them both with a melee attack. That is how graceful this section can be if you nail it at times. But we have just 1 hunter, and that will be the end of this section. And that's the end of this episode. Stay tuned for the final episode. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.